Hey, it's Don, the auction professor. We are live today. I've got issues as usual. I've got a list of things I wanted to discuss. I've got some questions that we've had. Hopefully, everybody will get their answers. I didn't go back to all of the questions from last week's show, so I'll probably touch on those as well too, and go from there. Jans Flips, how you doing? Some of the issues today, fall update. I'll be doing something particularly just on the fall update. I've said this before. Let me clean off that lens just a little there. Hopefully that's a little better. But I talked about the fall update. There isn't a lot going on in the fall update. I've had a couple other things or questions on when are we going to pick up on sales for those of you who are down. School is going back in session starting this week for some. Ian, one of my employees, is actually in school already. He started his first day today. I don't know why they're starting earlier than they have in the past. One of my sons starts next week, and then the other one starts the week after that. So once school starts back in, usually sales do pick up from that point on, at least from everything I have personally experienced. Obviously, there is going to be a fourth quarter, which should hopefully be good for everybody. As long as you've been putting up enough stuff throughout the summer and getting it ready, you should start to see an influx in sales starting out soon. So you've got maybe a week or two left before you will see some tick up, I would imagine, at least from the last 5 years from what I have personally seen. Let's see here. But school is usually the deciding factor. Same with like garage sales go down once school starts. At least around here they do. Even, the routine ones that have been running them all year round. So those will go down. You won't see as many garage sales. I don't know if who has savers in their town or not, but a lot of the thrift stores are having financial difficulties. I've talked about this before. Savers has had some negative articles on their financial ability right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see other savers closing down just unannounced. As I said, we had 2 savers here. Both of those closed down within a week's notice. 1 week they said they were going to close. Next week they were done. Both of them all at once. And I know Salvation Army and things like that are having issues here too, as is Goodwill. And one other thing that I've heard people say isn't true, but is true, Goodwill and Savers look up a lot of items now. They'll either go to a high dollar Goodwill store. I don't know if they're called Blue or Upscale or what they're called. And then Savers. I know for a fact that the Goodwill here does it. And I know for a fact that the Savers used to do it before they closed down here. They look up the high end items and price them. That's why you see them in the cases. I know they test the jewelry. And I know Goodwill, the same thing here for sure. It's confirmed. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They run an auction out of the one we have here. And again, for those of you who don't know, most Goodwills have the ability to auction on their own site or a main mother site where, the main Goodwill site comes from. So, you're running into other issues now with you finding stuff at thrift stores right now because of some of these issues going on. So, that's one thing, that I had to deal with too. Around here, there's only 4 stores that I can go to. So it's just not practical. I can't scale clothing at all anymore. You could have, a couple years ago, but not anymore. I can't make money off of $3 and $4 t-shirts. That's my cost into them. I've got Halloween cards. I'll show you some prelim drawings just because I haven't finalized everything yet. Let's see here. And another issue here that I've talked about I've had a bunch of questions. This is probably the most questions I had on something specific in the last couple days on what's the difference between a hobby and a business. Now, the point here is that if you're doing eBay for money, I don't care if you're planning on making $1 off of it. If you're doing it for income of any sort, it is a business, plain and simple. And at the end of the day, if for some reason you lose money, it's still a business because your main intention was to do it as a business. So even if you don't make money at it and your intentions was to have it as a business and to make money and you lose, it's still a business. Now, you can declare a loss on that for 5 straight years. Not that you'd want to, but it's legit. There's no questions, no complaints. The government's not going to have an issue with it. But again, it's a business if you plan to make even a penny technically. Just like if you run a garage sale in most states, you're required to report all your income. Most people don't do it. I'm not worried about what they do or don't do, but that's what you're supposed to do. We ran a garage sale once, and I didn't realize the town needed a permit for the garage sale, and the sheriff showed up at our house over this, and End of the story was he let me just go down and buy a permit, and then he bought like $20 worth of stuff from my sale. So, who knows? But, that's all supposed to be reported. I know most people don't, as I said. I did follow this up. I'm also going to be doing a list that I'll probably put on the About Me page of every video that I have up and what's in those videos. Because I've had a lot of questions on where's this video, where's that video, where do you cover this? Do you cover this? I'm going to put a list for everybody to see. It'll have every video. I've got like 211 or 212 videos up right now, but this will be an easy way for you to sort through and just get to the ones that you want. Because I know everybody doesn't like every video, no big deal. This way, at least you'll be able to go to the ones that are interested in, for you, for topics that you want to see. So I had that question asked a lot too, through the time. I've probably got 30 or 40 people who've asked about a specific video to say, what's this, where's that, packing. Obviously, I've got how-to list, a playlist that has most of the packing videos. I do have some more packing videos coming out. And we're going to be moving up where I shoot the videos probably too, just so I can do and show more things. We're going to be using a studio program as well too, so I can interlace video and things like that too. And there may be, somebody else coming on the channel, or I going to someone else's channel here soon too. So just keep that in mind. I have already talked to a very large antique mall, and I may have an interview with the gentleman who runs it. And most definitely we'll have some video from inside there, set up and do the whole works inside of a antique mall. It's going to be a big antique mall, so you can kind of get a gist on it. And I'll kind of explain some things while we're there. This antique mall has some really nice items in it, and there's just a broad range of stuff in there. So I think that would be a big help to a lot of people to see where I go and what I do. And what I look for, because literally we'll be able to do it with, bright lights. I'll bring up a whole setup in there. We've got cameras, tripods. I already have all that stuff, so no big deal. And as I said, I have talked to these people too. Let's see who else is on already. I've talked again. We don't want to waste the whole day. We had a big day today. We went out to the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit area. If you're unfamiliar with that, do a quick Google search. It's a really nice museum out there. I've been there years ago, like 20 plus years ago when I was a child. We took our kids out there. It was a really good experience. We were out pretty much most of the day there today. School starts back in, as I said. So we always try to do something family leading up to school starting. So anyway, Jaded Gypsy, welcome. Sublime 90, how you doing? Annie, welcome. Peddlin' Profits, how you doing? We got Milk Cap, Steve Hill, Kathy Steele. Let's see, Anthony Fazzini. Let's see here. I don't want to hop down too far so I'm not missing questions. Welcome, everybody. We'll see here. Yeah, Milk Cap. I'm not sure how they can go broke either. Me and the wife were just talking about that. We were coming back from Detroit and literally saw thrift store after thrift store in the Detroit area. Excuse me. We didn't have time to stop. Otherwise, we might have taken a look. But we thought the same thing. They had two Sabres in our town, two different Sabres. I don't understand why they didn't just close one and combine them into one big store, cut the employees in half, cut the building costs in half, and go from there, because they already had the money invested in it. I'm not sure what the deal was, but the market in general for thrift stores is down. I mean, literally, it's being crushed by competition. It's being crushed by major retailers who are lowering their prices and being competitive with some of the prices you see on used clothing on eBay, even Poshmark and Etsy and the whole works. I don't care what anybody else says. That's the truth. We've seen it. I go to the mall occasionally. There are stores in the mall. You can still get stuff to resell even these days, mostly discounts and stuff. But we go shopping for clothing for ourselves sometimes in the mall. So there's always an option to buy stuff for resale wherever you go, even at, Walmart or wherever you're at. Even Dollar General has stuff you can make money on. For one example, they have some oolong tea at Dollar General. You get the right boxes of it. You can make $6-8 each one of those boxes you buy. So we've done that before too. So if you're just starting out, you can look up things like that. A lot of the Dollar Generals carry those oddball teas, and they sell very well. And you can even, sell them on other platforms as well, Amazon and stuff like that too. But that's just an FYI. I wanted to address just a couple other things before we go to some questions. Merch by Amazon. I'm not sure if there's a lot of people that are interested or even know what Merch by Amazon is. It's basically, you can put t-shirts designs up. I think it's 10 we started with, and they keep upping your amount once you've sold 10 to start with. But it's not a huge income. But, as I said, branching out, This will be our 8th revenue stream is Merch My Amazon. And it offers you a lot of stuff that you can do. I'll probably do a video maybe on that, as well as Discogs, because I've got my Facebook group. I've seen many people are in the Facebook group who are on tonight. But a lot of people have asked about vinyl. I'll probably go into Discogs. That would be a safe bet for a lot of folks to look into. Less money to invest in listing and things like that. It'll give you an opening to it. And then you can cross promote as well. But that's some of the issues that I wanted to cover in some of the videos. And as I said, there'll be a list coming up within the next week or so of every video I have up, with details on what's in it. It might be a long section in the About Me page, but, it'll be a help to a lot of people, or I might even put it as a link if somebody's interested, as well as a schedule on, I'll try to do a schedule a week or so in advance on what video is coming out when, if I can get to that point too. But I've got some other issues, but we'll go ahead and see what we got going on here and go from there. Let's see what we're doing today. Graphing calculators do sell. I've got kids, and I took, engineering classes as well as IT classes. Graphing calculators from a university are like $150. If you've got them, now is the time to sell them. Once school comes back in, the prices go down. During the last, say 3 weeks of August is usually when we sell all of our summer ones anyway, any of the graphing calculators we have. I think I sold a couple calculators in this past week or two. But Milkcap is right. This is the key time to be selling those. If you're picking up college books, this is the time you want to have them up. Most colleges are in session by the 27th of August. I know the major university here starts the week of the 27th, as does BG. Most of them do around here, honestly. So community college, they all start then. So that's when, if you're making money, if you do Chegs or something like that, that's a good opportunity too. They're paying a higher dollar now than they would in mid-section of the school year. So just keep that in mind. If you've got those graphing calculators, now's the time. From the school, they're like $150. So, a graphing calculator, I've found them at Savers all the time on the bags on the walls in the electronics section in the back at ours anyway. So obviously they're closed, but once in a blue moon, we find them at Goodwill. But I'll see those even at garage sales. And I've even seen them on Craigslist too. Those are usually a quick, 50, 60 to $100 you can make on a good graphing calculator. Even if you spend 30 or 40 bucks on some of these, you can still make some good money. So just FYI, that's a good call out there on Milkcap. Let's see, Peddling Profits. Restore some list online. Yeah, I've seen they've got a Habitat for Humanity here. The best thing they sell, and I've been in there many times, they've got brass hardware. That's usually what I make my money on if I go to one of those. And sometimes we've bought doors and things like that there for people and for ourselves too. But for the most part, the only thing you're going to make, at least us around here, are like seconds and stuff for brass hinges, doorknobs, and sometimes they're still in the boxes even. So, you get lucky there. It depends on what they have, what yours is. Some of them are just terrible. Some of them have nothing extra. Some of them don't have people that drop off good stuff, and it's just basically junk. But I've been in a couple of them, and I've been into them, dozens of times. Sometimes I'll find something cool. Sometimes you even find some tools in there. So not regularly, but there's all kinds of other little like resale shops too that you can make money on too. But Habitat for Humanities, there are ones around here. The Restore it. It's only good for us for brass and hardware though. Let's see, where are we at? Yeah, Halloween stuff. I'll just throw this up here just so you can see it. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but this is actually a pencil sketch I did for the new postcard, or one of the new postcards. I'll probably go into a little more detail. I've got some other ones. I've got a whole bunch of these things here, but anyway, and I've got a color versions and the whole works. I'll have the actual cards probably coming up here soon too. And I'm going to give some away. I was debating on giving away a original piece of artwork, hand done, from some of my earlier postcards. Usually I sell those, but I'll probably give one or so away for Halloween, as well as some other items. Halloween, I've got several giveaways coming up at the end of October. So in another, month and a half or so, I'll be having some giveaways coming out, some good ones too. So keep an eye out for that. Just the way I'm going to do it for that. I'm going to wait till then to give out some bigger stuff. As I said, there probably will be a trilobite. That trilobite that I shown will probably given away during that as well too. Trilobite wise, we were going to just list a whole bunch online to sell, but we've actually got some good feedback and some real good interest locally and through some of the like model stores that we've talked to. So I've been hesitant to put it online just because once I put it online, if I put it on Amazon and somebody buys it from overseas, they can just knock it off, within a day of getting this thing. You can cast it and then just form your own and then roll them out the door like that. So I've been hesitant on that, but we've already got our money back out of them, so I'm not really too worried if I sit on them for just a little bit here. We've got new ones, so I've already cast. I've already got another, some more things we're actually starting to do. We're going to be doing some little action figures now too. So anyway, that's just some of what we're doing. Let's go back and see what we got here. Everything Halloween, yeah. Christmas cards are good now. Literally, if you're not doing the typical stuff, clothing is not up right now. Clothing's way down across the board. It's not you, it's not your items. I don't think eBay's doing anything. They only make money when everybody sells. So for what I see, eBay is trying to improve it. And for my sales, they have improved it, at least for our typical stuff. And what I sell, 90 some odd % of what I sell isn't going to be buy box. It's going to be just like on Amazon. Most everything I have up on Amazon does not have a buy box at all. So I don't have to worry about that. So, I do have some items that do have ones like the books and stuff up there, but that's just the way it is on Amazon. So if you're selling the oddball stuff, your sales probably aren't dropping much at all. And that's just across the board. The market's saturated and flooded across the board in clothing, as I've talked about before. So anyway, all the oddball stuff, the Christmas, the holidays, that should be going really well for almost everybody. I've talked to dozens of people, and literally that's all I hear is everybody's having the same experience if they're selling what we're selling as I am. So, I know the sales are there. It's just geared away from the typical clothing that everybody else has. The standards. The standard for eBay is collectibles, antiques, because that's what eBay really was and should still be. Their antique market, basically. So, clothing was a secondhand thing to eBay to add later on. They let you list anything. So, for those of you who started out way back in the day, the categories were very, very limited. There was just so many other things you could do back when eBay first started. You could bid on your own items once. There's just all kinds of stuff. You could leave negative feedback for buyers. There was no 5-star system. It took 3 or 4 pages to list one item, 10 minutes sometimes to list an item, to go through every page. They've really improved the site. And I know people say this is a big major change. If you've been on since the beginning, this past summer change isn't that big. When they went to 5-star, when they went to single pages, when they went to actually letting you post photos on their site as opposed to having your own storage and then, HTMLing them over to there with an SRC code or something like that. That's big changes for me. This here is, it's rolling out to a system that most people should know. Anybody who's been on Amazon should know how the buy box works. Even if you're not selling on Amazon, you've seen the buy box. You understand that, you got to click to look in. I know it's going to hurt some people who have bad feedback, but, or have, a lot of items not as described or things like that. It's cost of doing business. And I know people hate when people say that, but it is a cost of doing business. I've been preaching to keep your feedback up, and this is a perfect example with them charging, the flat fee on eBay. The highest fee they charge for anything is 10%, but they're adding 4% more if you've got a lot of items not as described or returns, so you just got to watch out. I take this, 100% seriously, every day of the week, and that's why I pack the way I do. That's why I go overboard with everything. You can't, charge shipping if you're not going to pack with the extra added, tape and all the stuff that I do. It's not going to float. That's why I can afford to charge shipping and not worry because I pack extra. So, I've learned that over the years. In the beginning when we did clothes like everybody else, we actually included free shipping. And then I kept having people tell me, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. We were doing good. And then we tried it on some of the items. And sure enough, as long as you pack right and, you get a lot of return business, it's better to not give free shipping away in my book for across the board. With a flooded clothing market, it might be different, but we don't sell mostly clothing. And as I said, even with clothing, I charge shipping. 99% of every item, 99.9% of every item I sell has, the buyer paying shipping on it. So anyway, let's go back here and see what we got again. Have you visited the I-77 Antique Mall? I am not sure where that is. There's one on I-75 called Jeffries. I don't know if anybody knows that one. It's heading down. It's like in the Dayton, Ohio area. If you haven't been to that one's quoted on the sign in front of the building as being the largest in Ohio. I don't know if that's true, but I've been in there many times, and I've always been able to score paper in Jeffries on I-75 near Dayton. So, just FYI, there's some here in Maumee, Ohio area. We've been to many in Detroit in the past, downriver area and things like that. So anyway, there's a lot of good antique malls. And as we're going into winter, for those of you who are just getting into the collectibles, you're going to really need to, check out some of these places and source your antique malls, because you're not going to have the garage sales. The thrift stores are going to raise their prices. I will almost guarantee you, once the garage sale season is over, because they're going to be the only ones selling used, or only places you can get used clothing at once the garage sales have dried up for the season. So the prices are going to go up. You're going to have more competition there. I've been saying this, you're going to have to diversify. If you don't diversify, next year will be worse than you are right now. I hate to keep saying the same thing, but people still think I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm crazy about that. That's the fact. I've been talking about this for years, that you need to start diversifying. The folks who listen to me aren't doing bad at all right now. And most of the folks that I've, known personally for years have diversified. There's a couple that didn't, and now they're sorry. And now they're trying to scamper and learn areas that, it takes time to learn. Like the stuff I'm showing you in most every video, they're time consuming. So I might go over, similar topics just because there's too much to quote and talk about in one single video. I could spend all day talking about postcards. Literally, I could do a 12-hour video on postcards and probably miss a ton of stuff. So, that's why I say research is key to everything, and not just researching something. You got to understand, you got to know that item. After you've researched and looked up a couple hundred postcards, you're going to pretty much get a good idea on which ones to look for, which ones are the older, how to date them. You should be able to tell right off the bat. If you're not in my Facebook group as well, too, it's the Auction Professor. A couple of my subscribers in there too have found some really, really good postcards and some really good items. They post some sales in there and stuff like that too. So, the items are out there. Some of the items and stuff that people are showing are better than some items I've run into lately. So, a $400 or $500 postcard is a pretty good item in my book, or even a couple $100. Even $100 postcard is a good item, especially with the cost you pay for them. You're not going to get a $100 T-shirt, for $1 for the most part. It just doesn't happen. So anyway, let's see what we got for questions. In Ohio, yeah, I don't know the I-77 one there. Good evening, Disney Family 515. Yeah, we took a break today. I just had a couple employees doing some listings for us too. As I said, we went to Detroit. I almost got a glass of wine out today just to kind of relax, but it's been a long day. So, this is the first real big time-wise I've spent online today, because we left real early. Detroit's like an hour away from where we live, and traffic's terrible. I-75's closed during a section coming south, so it was just a bad drive. But anyway, we had a good time. GTOR 6723. Everything for sales researched by the seller. It depends on the store. For the most part, paper items, GTOR, I don't find them priced. It depends on the lot and the dealer itself. If you got an antique mall that's like on a main strip and it's just flooded with stuff, some might look up everything. You can. What I'd look for is the huge bins of postcards. Those are the ones I make the money on almost religiously. I had a big 12-hour video haul, last week. I could have sat at one of those booths for like 2 or 3 hours looking through probably 10,000 postcards at one, which I could have made money on, but I had my kids and the family there. We were, trying to make some good money on some other items and stuff. We already had, went through the place for like 4 or 5 hours before I ran into this booth. I know there's still good malls out there that have good stuff. I know it. They're out there at almost any place I've ever been. So postcards, paper, sheet music, 78 records. For the most part, I don't look through 45s at these unless they're in big bulk bins and not sleeved. If they're sleeved, I usually just don't mess with them at all. Once in a while, I'll flip through them if I'm not finding a whole lot of other stuff. But literally every antique mall I go to, I walk out with a couple $100 worth of profitable items. Literally every time I've went anywhere. Of course, I know more items than most people. We've been doing this, and I spend a lot of time researching it. So if I don't find postcards, I can find pewter figures. I can find, little doodads or knickknacks or little statuary, comic book are related artwork and characters, even sometimes comic books, even like Richie Rich. Some of the Richie Rich comic books have value. Some of the like Pep Magazine or Archie or something like that. A lot of those are usually lowball price because people think they're worth nothing, or even some of the Disney ones, even like comic strips from the Sunday pages, stacks of newspaper, waybills I find there too. Letterheads are really good items to find. With like literally a letterhead from a company from the 1800s with like wagons on it or horses or something like that, or a harness company, or a chilled plow. Anything that says chilled plow is usually a real good item. Farming equipment. There's a lot of different items you can find at an antique mall. So I've been to hundreds and hundreds of antique malls, and the same one over and over and over and over again. And I always find a couple $100. I don't care even if it's a little small antique mall. There's always some good stuff that they've missed. Miniature books, pocket knives, bottles. I mean, the list of stuff you can find is horrendous. And if it's a small store and there's not a lot of stuff in there, I don't care if they see me looking up stuff. The price is what the price is. If they charge me something different than what's on the item, they're violating the law. So, I won't shop there again. And around here, there's probably within an hour, I'd say there's at least 60 different antique establishments I could go to within an hour drive of right where I'm sitting at right now, at least 60. And that's just with the ones that I personally know about. I'm sure there's some off the beaten path. It doesn't even have to be an antique store. It could be like a secondhand shop or a resale shop. I still find stuff in. Now, resale shops, you might find records in, or around here, there's Allied Records. And I know they look up their records, but I've always been able to find some that they didn't look up or they missed or they hadn't a clue on. So even sometimes record shops, or like a used CD video game shop sometimes gets big boxes of records in. You just got to get them before they search them, or go to a store that doesn't search them out. There's a couple Allieds around here, 3 or 4 of them. All but one searches them. So I know which one to go to anyway. So anyway, the stuff's out there. It just may take you some time to figure out. If you can't find Postcards reasonable price, look around and see what else you can find. So, and again, there's like business clothing sales, local live auctions I've stated to, and church sales. Church sales are going to be going wayside here once the summer's done too, so just keep that in mind. Church sales are the best place I find sheet music at other than a picker or at a local live antique auction. So, or even like a home liquidation estate auction or something like that's good too. Auction Zip, estatesale.com, any of those are good places to find those. And right now, like in the area that I'm in on estate sale, I want to say there's like 70 different estate sales up. And of course, it's in a broad area, an hour or so drive. If it's a good enough sale, I'll drive that far. Doesn't bother me at all. It's part of what you do. You got to take the time. So I'll set myself up with some other items or other places to go to when I do these drives. So just keep that in mind. Try to get a bunch of things all at the same time. Don't just go to one place an hour from your house. Set yourself up. Leave early. Make it a big, long day. Knock out some stuff that you wouldn't normally see. Like, go to some of the other stores. If there's thrift stores around there, I usually try and hit those while we're out too. So anyway, let's see here. How do I store and ship large paper items like rolled posters or big posters? It depends on the items. Let's see if I can show you something. This is one of what we would do for big items here. Now, this is something that I've figured out. This is an accordion. It's pretty heavy since there's a lot of paper in here. But literally, it's a standard like 12-inch tall, or let's say 12 by 14 accordion with, it's got about 20 some odd pockets. Anything large paper that'll fit in here, I stick it in here. If it's rolled or something like that, I actually have a video on how to ship rolled items under my shipping in the how-to page. I think I put it up a week or 2 ago, so you wouldn't have to go looking too far back. But I can roll those up and make a rolled box out of them as well. I show you 2 different ways how to roll and wrap posters. I've sold a bunch since then even. I just usually put them in one of these bins. Usually most posters that I buy are like 27.5 by 41. That's a 1-sheet movie poster. If it's a rolled one, it'll fit in one of these right and angly, so I can stick a whole bunch in here. If it's like a folded one, which most movie posters back in the day were folded, that's just how I find most of them. They'll fit in one of these as well too, or you can put them in like the smaller size bins flat and just stack them up alphabetically wise though. But most everything, if it's rolled and it comes rolled, I ship it rolled. If it's flat, I ship it flat. That's just across the board what I do for everything. These here too, on one of these bins, this is a Walmart bin. These are $6.89 with the lid. And these, the accordions, I buy 2 of them, and you can fit 2 in each one of these. And that way you can bin number them by the numbers on the accordion. So like this one here is the and sign. I don't know how well you can see it, but this is and in whatever else. So it's and A and B and C. And like I've got other ones that are the same thing as that. These would be like pound A, pound B, pound C, and then ascetric A, B, C, D, E. You know, and that's how I label those. So I know right off the bat if it's a big bin, small bin, or any kind of bin that it is. I'll probably do another video. Let me write that down too, because I've had a lot of questions on storage on things too. So I will write that down, and we're going to do some storage videos too. I'll go into more in-depth. I don't think I've actually done one covering all the aspects of storage. These bins were great for almost anything. Comics, paperbacks, anything paper can be fit in one of these Walmart bins. Walmart bins are where I buy everything. You can get a 10-pack of some of the smaller ones for like $8.98. And as I said, these are under $6 for these if you get them on sale. And I'll usually buy a bunch of them. I got a stack of ones I haven't even used yet over here. And then when we're blowing out the clothing, I've emptied some, so I have more bins. So I got like 8 or 10 bins empty, ready to go too. So, you know, storage-wise is pretty easy once you figure out what you're getting into. Don't go buying a bunch of stuff until you know that's what you want to do. Paper isn't going to be for everybody. A lot of people hate it. They may not, you know, get the gist of it. They may get too frustrated with it. But for us, you know, it was either I find another category or I'm going to be out of business selling clothing, because it's just no market here to find it. You know, and I could go to a garage sales all day long, day after day, and not find anything good. Because the big thing around here is everybody goes to a garage sale the night before now. They'll go to the sale while they're setting up the night before, trying to get their tables to figure out what they have all the time. I stopped going to garage sales because of that, especially anyone that said records. There's one lady locally here who will go to it every single night before to everyone and drive around. And then I've heard her response. I've heard what she's told them. She says, "Oh, I thought that was today." And they usually let her in because she looks like a sweet old lady, but she's a scammer as far as I could say across the book. You know, a friend of ours actually had a garage sale, and she showed up at the house the night before when I was helping them set it up. So, you know, I even know who she is. You know, I don't appreciate when people do that. So that's my biggest pet peeve is there's a lot of, I don't want to say this bad, but there's a lot of not or scrupulous people into the field that I'm into. Most of the auctioneers that I have seen have had legal problems. Many of them, a large majority of every auctioneer has been in jail, as well as probably a 50-50 on most of the people who run estate sales have been in jail for theft of some kind, at least the ones that I've seen and talked to. So, you know, I don't mess with the ones that I know have a criminal history. You can usually find those out online. But anyway, just keep that in mind. And I'm not spouting out, you know, baseless facts. These are from talking and seeing personally what has happened. So just keep that in mind. You know, I know that's a little bit off base, but, you know, I was just talking to somebody about that just the other day. So let's see where we're at here. Hopefully that answered your question, Annie. I will go into a video, as I said, though. Yeah, Hawkridge. No, I was just talking about that. I've told that to somebody, and I've seen other people's videos claiming that Goodwill does not do that. I guarantee you that most of the Goodwills probably look up their items now, especially because they do auctions at Goodwill. Goodwill has you know, put out memos and the whole works, trying to get more and more of their stores to actually have the time and the people to do auctions, because their income is higher when they do the auctions. We've seen record lots that I've even went and looked at locally where there's bidders on them paying, you know, twice what I could sell them for. So, you know, I don't know what the deal is. Obviously charity, but I won't mess with any of the Goodwill auctions. There's just no money to be had there. You know, you're paying a premium and they're cranking up the prices. Even the starting bid on some of the items they have is way higher than the value on most of the items I've seen. So, and as I said, Savers has been looking up their jewelry for a long time. You know, I don't care what anybody says. I've talked to enough people who run Goodwill or Savers in my time to know for sure that that's what they do. They're the ones who told me about the auctions in the first place. When we lived in Mississippi, there was one that actually had live auctions there. They would bulk lot auctions of records and things from their store. You know, they'd literally run a gavelled live auction. They'd auction off cars and all kinds of stuff at Goodwill. So, you know, they're not just a Goodwill. They do other things, whether you know it or not. But anyway. Yeah, hang on here. Let me see where we're at. Back to Hawkridge for just a second. Higher and 3.5 away to a larger. Why explains why there is a prevalence of lower brands. Yeah, I'm sure they pull it out. They're marketing. Goodwill markets too. They know that higher end stuff sells better in a higher end area in a bigger town. It's going to sell better. It's going to definitely sell better than a small town with less product. So I really know what they do here. Like the ones here, the Goodwill doesn't put records out. The small 45s. I have never seen a 45 in the one here of any value. Every one bulk wise goes into an auction locally, every one of those. So, there's less and less chances of getting it that way. And like the antique malls, back to that, antique malls, it's hit or miss with the people that are in there. You just got to keep that in mind. I can't guarantee you're going to go into any mall and find a ton of stuff. You've got to have a broad range of stuff to look for. That is the key to doing an antique mall. You've got to have, I've got hundreds of different types of items in different areas that I can look for. I know pretty much the gambit on vintage toys and action figures, and even up into the 80s and 90s. You can go into an antique mall and sometimes find Star Wars action figures and just oddball action figures, even newer 80s, 90s figures that they have no clue and don't look up, that you can find. Some of the Marvel Legends and things like that sell well, even loose. I've ran into like G-Force figures and, Voltron and stuff at antique malls recently for almost nothing. Just because there are broken pieces or parts and stuff like that, most people don't think it has a value. But I've talked about it many times. We always make good money off of pieces of action figures and toys from the 70s, 80s, and anything before that, even into the 90s. Let's see here. Cardboard cylinders with plastic plugs and insurance. If you're talking about for rolled, I don't buy anything for rolling or anything like that. We use either cardboard that we have here that I custom make into a triangle container, or I literally make tubes up from the saran wrap that we buy. And I've talked about that in one of my videos. So if you want to see how we do, there's two different ways we use. I don't buy tubes at all. I don't spend any money on any of those at all. And insurance wise, most of the time I don't put insurance. My packing's pretty bulletproof, I would say. I'm not trying to brag or anything. I use a ton of tape. I use a ton of cardboard. People, when they pay for my shipping, they get their money's worth. So that's part of the key. If you're going to charge shipping, you have to pack properly. Every single item I get or sell has cardboard around it. Everything, even a t-shirt, I'm going to put in a box, or it's going to be wrapped in cardboard. It's going to be bagged in a plastic airtight bag, and then it's going to be poly bagged on the end. And, that's included in my shipping, what I charge for shipping. I do a flat, well, it's not flat, it's a calculated, but I don't give out the discount. So let's say a 3-ounce package is $3.50. That's what the post office charges. It costs me $2.66. So I use the difference to cover the fees that eBay charges for the final value fee on the shipping. It covers my cardboard, my poly bags, and my plastic bags or wrap as well too. So I call it a wash when I'm, shipping it out that way, the 3-ounce items. So, and the same thing goes for bigger items here. It's, it's like 80 or 90 cents difference or something like that at most, between the discount and that. It depends on the service, of course, but that's what I do. And, the price is quoted, so there's no argument. They can't come back and say I charged them wrong. I do not print any prices on any labels as to what it costs. I am in no way trying to make a profit on my shipping, but I'm trying to break even on shipping. And, I go the extra mile with shipping. So just keep that in mind. People think I'm crazy. I use way too much tape. You can look at my feedback across the board. Everybody says something about, shipping. Every 4 or 5 comments literally says awesome packing or shipping or well protected or something along that line. Not trying to brag again, but that's what you want in your feedback. So if somebody's thinking about buying a high dollar item from you, they're definitely going to look at your feedback, and I express how well I wrap. And same with the 78s. Every time somebody new buys a 78 from me, they usually send me a list of how I should pack the 78. Now, I never use that list because my way is, tried and true and tested over, probably 5,000 78s in the last few years we've sold. So, I don't worry about it, but you'll see people worrying about that. They look at my feedback. They'll look to see how many records I've sold, especially with 78s, because if you pack a 78 wrong, it's going to get broken. A 78 is as fragile as a piece of the finest china you will have. The real thin, delicate china, that's how fragile a 78 is. A 78 is not vinyl. It is not flexible. It's made out of shellac. The same thing you coat furniture with. And you can scratch that, you can chip it, you drop it, it's gone. So any flexing to a 78 will break it. So if you're selling 78s, I've got a couple videos that cover 78s. I would highly recommend watching one of those videos. Even if you don't want to watch mine, watch somebody's on how to pack a 78 properly. You can't set it in a flat pack like you would a LP or a 45 or even the 16 millimeter or 16 speed records. So anyway, just FYI. You can't get onto Amazon. I'm not allowed to sell. Hang on, I just logged. It's acting up. Hang on, let me go back to where I was. I don't know what you and here is hopping around. Where did I just lose it? It says I'm not allowed to sell, and I never even set up my account completely. With Amazon, you have to get ungated. This is for Yin's Flips. You can't sell a lot of items without having permission to sell them. And it'll say like you have to have permission to sell in this category. You can click usually on that comment and it'll take you to a page where you can actually apply for like collectibles. That is the key department you're going to get into if you're going to sell records on Amazon, because there's a collectible vinyl, and I've been approved for the vinyl. I just submitted CD receipts from a wholesaler locally here like a month or so ago. I did get approved. I don't have any going up right this minute, but you have to get clearance. You have to be ungated. It's called being ungated with Amazon. Even if your account is completely set up, you still have to be ungated. To get your account set up on Amazon, you have to set up your shipping, and all that stuff has to be set up. The minute you get ungated on any of the categories, you have to be paying the $39.99 for the business account too. So just keep that in mind. Have a bunch of items to list if you're going to get ungated, because the minute you're ungated, you're billed $39.99 a month. I don't remember. I don't think they take it out until the end of the billing cycle. So it's not immediately your bill, but they start charging you for the minute you get ungated. I've only had a couple people ask about getting ungated for Amazon. It took us a month to get our first ungating. And then once we got the first one, all the forms we put in and all the examples for Amazon, you have to send in sheets of what kind of listings you're going to be putting up and the quantity. What they want to hear from you is that you've got a ton of merchandise and you want to list 100,000 listings. Even if you're not going to do that many, tell them that, because that's what they want to hear. I had an Amazon employee personally say you need to adjust your paperwork. He didn't say specifically, but as soon as I changed the quantity and I gave him a couple full sheets of all of our inventory or of some inventory that I planned on listing, I got ungated like 2 days later, literally. So it takes some time. If somebody wants to be covered, I get enough people interested in that. Maybe I'll do a video just on, the forms that I have, because I saved all that stuff. There's not much to it. There's no explanation. You're just going to get a blank form. It says, put this here, put this there, and that's it. It doesn't go into any details or explanation of what they're actually looking for. And to get an answer, 2 or 3 times I would get the same person. Then all of a sudden it'd be 2 or 3 different people talking to me, trying to get answers. So, and they're just as bad as any other site. In some ways they're worse. At least eBay explains all of the aspects of everything. Like, let's say you want to sell in cars or sell a car or be a car dealer or something. They explain everything. Amazon does not do that. Collectibles was supposed to be a limited category where they weren't accepting anybody when I applied. But I went through and I threw a fuss and I kept bugging them. Every day they sent me a notice that said, hey, this is wrong, that's wrong. I just sent another one back immediately, every single day. And, they just finally got tired, I guess, from hearing from me. But I'm persistent. I don't care if it takes me time. It's going to take you time to get into Amazon. You're going to have to get ungated. So anyway, you have to fill the forms. There's always a spot to apply for it. There are a few categories that you can't get ungated to because they're, key areas. Like you can't sell Nikes or something like that. Nike will have you booted off there as quick as you can say Nike, So anyway, let's see back where we're at, because I know I'm a couple pages down again on questions. Jada Gypsy, I'll see about putting something together. I've probably got a half a dozen. It would be great to have more. Groove Master resellers, welcome. The innocent culprit. Yeah, and I've heard that too about the dorms. We're college towns here. There's several good colleges. I know the well-to-do college students usually just throw their stuff away. I've seen refrigerators picked out of those kind of things. There's a couple people who have videos up on YouTube. Oh, I can't remember the name of them, but there's somebody who literally does videos on going to the college dorms afterwards. And I've seen just, God knows, all kinds of keyboards and, like brand new stuff. I've even seen IKEA stuff in there. Not that that's a huge ordeal, but they throw away good stuff a lot. They don't have the ability to run a garage sale. And even if it's their last year there at big time, they just trash it. They're not going to sit there and pack it up. They're out of there. They graduated. It's water under the bridge to them. It's long since been paid for. So anyway, that is a good thing there too. Yeah, that's exactly as I said. They'd rather not haul it back. Yeah, check on the innocent culprit before you sell them back to the school. Check on Chegs. If you don't know about Chegs, you need to look it up. Chegg. Chegs is the college book, expert. We sell most of our books there that we get from sales and stuff like that. Even our old school books. We even bought our school books, and we buy our sons either from there or we rent them from Amazon for our kids. We usually cover our kids' books. That's just what we do in school. But you need to look into Chegs if you haven't, because sometimes you can get $10, $15 more for a Chegs book, and they pay for the shipping. I know you can go and take them to the school and do it and usually get cash or something immediately. But, Chegs usually does, a higher return on our investment, at least the ones that we have seen. The schools are cheap when they do book buybacks. I graduated not too long ago with my master's, so we went through the whole book thing, and Chegs was a lifesaver for us. It costs, let's see, the one semester, the first one we bought books at the or at this school, it was $1,500 for the 15 credit hours worth of classes, the books. The next time we bought books, we got them off of Chegs. It was $220 or $230 dollars for the same amount of classwork books. One book alone for the IT could be $500, depending on what kind of book it is and whether it's your kit or not. Because on your first IT class, you have to buy a kit usually with tools. You can buy the tools separately and then get a used copy of the book and save yourself, $300 right off the bat. So, I'm cheap even in college. Our sons earned enough scholarships. We just looked at his stuff. With the alumni scholarship, my son's going to get like $5 back for a whole session, this session from UT, which is a big college. It's an expensive. He's got enough to cover almost $7,000 worth of schooling for free just because of grades and, applying for all these scholarships and stuff. So anyway, that's off topic again, but we're talking about college books. College books are always good. Once they're a year or so old, they're just trash though, just FYI. Yeah, Robert Reagan, Sublime 90. I'll probably give away. In fact, let me step off for just 1 second. I'm probably going to give away. This is actually an original. I wish, it's a shame that the lighting is kind of washing it out, but I'm probably going to give away one of these. These are actually hand painted. I originally painted the postcards the size of a postcard, just because I used to paint actual one-off postcards and get like $100 out of those. But I started painting this size originally. Now you can see I paint them on, rag paper and the whole works, and just do them at a larger size. That works better because you get better detail in them. But I will probably give one of these away for Halloween if anybody is interested. I'll do some contest here if somebody is interested. I'm kind of far behind here on questions, so let me pop back up here and see. Annie. Yeah, the broken graphing calculators will sell too, and that is because they can be fixed. My son fixes a lot of stuff. I mean, there's not a lot to a calculator. You can even swap out, the inside mechanics of them too as well, electronic board. It can all be resoldered. There are companies that'll fix them for like $30 a pop or $40 a pop. You pay $30 for one, may cost you $30 or $40 to fix, and you can still make $40 profit on some of them. Some of them you can still make even more than that. There's calculators that cost $200 and $300 just for the base model. It just depends on what type of calculator it is. So, I've sold up lots of calculators. I've even shown some vintage ones. We sell them all the way back to the late 50s are the earliest ones I've had. And the vintage calculators usually sell very, very well. But let me get up some questions here. I'm way behind on answering questions. Thank you, Kathleen Murphy. Let me come back down here. Polaroids. Yeah, I knew somebody who used to do that way back in the day. Mavica, I think, was with the camera that took floppies. I had a friend who used to do that because that was like the top of the line back in the day. Now you can get those at a sale for like $5 and $10. Those used to be like $1,000 cameras, the floppy cameras. Now I don't even see them anymore. Anyway. Yeah, I still take money orders. So I know I see Jaded Gypsy, you guys are talking about money orders. Yeah, I still take money orders. I do not take checks, but I still take money orders. I just got one in the other day. Once in a blue moon, I'll take a check from a routine customer that's been buying for me for years. Um, don't rule out anything like that. As long as you don't mind waiting and they don't mind waiting, who cares? It's just free money in the bank. But again, I'd stray away from checks and still take USPS money orders. When somebody asks if I take, money orders, they hate PayPal, which I do get. Some of the old timers who buy postcards and things don't like PayPal at all. I'll tell them, just send me a money order, a U.S. Postal Service money order, and then I just deposit them in the bank whenever I get out there. They can sit here for months without me taking them in because who cares? They're usually not a high dollar amount, and they're good for pretty much ever. I don't remember if there's an expiration date, but usually I go to the bank at least once a month, maybe. So, for something like that. Yeah, I don't remember them charging for putting photos up. They didn't used to give you any photos. You'd actually have to have your own storage facility for the photos. And then you'd have to know a basic HTML to do the SRC equals IMG with the HTTP address after that. So you had to know a little something about coding back in the day to list on eBay. I did them back in the day. We did it 20 years ago when eBay first started. It was... They could have charged. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. Maybe when they first started offering photos, but before that, they used to have your own storage and be able to have to link it with HTML to that. And you'd have to actually, your description would have the HTML code you'd have to drop in at the bottom. I'd usually just have cut and paste, and I'd pop in the codes for whatever I wanted to do, because you could set up bold, or you still can, with HTML coding too, whether you're using H6 or any of the designations for bolding and all that stuff. You can change the color, and you can inject, you used to be able to anyway, into the title, motion and the whole works, so anyway. Yeah, money orders are still good though. I mean, I still take them. I've got one in this week, as I've said. Yeah, and check as well. Emalanchi. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that. Emola Chance. Okay. Hopefully I said that right, or I probably butchered it. Yeah, checks used to, as I said, I still get checks in once in a blue moon from somebody who's done business with me for a long time. Don't be afraid to take it. As long as it shows up, I always tell them if they're going to send a check or money order, it has to be in the mail within 48 hours of the close of the auction. That's just my stipulation. And any of the ones who have sent it, that's what happens. The people who ask for money orders or checks, I have never had a person, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, not send it immediately. The ones I always end up having to open up a item not paid for are, usually cheaper items or like comic books that kids would buy, just because the fun wise, they might not have an access to an account. Sometimes it turns out a kid used their parents' account, things like that too. So anyway. Jennifer Leland, yeah, I wouldn't, for us, never ever go to the post office and pay for your postage. Do it through eBay, because you're paying full cost if you go to the post office. So just keep that in mind. So if you're going to the post office with those, fine to cash them theirs. But if you're mailing from the post office, you're wasting money because you're paying full price. eBay gives you a discount. And as I said, for first class mail, eBay, the post office charges $3.50 for 3 ounces. Or 3 or 4 ounces. Anything over 4 is $3.75, up to the next level, which I think is 7 ounces. But for the 3 ounces is $3.50 at the post office. If you do it from eBay, you are only paying $2.66. So you can pocket the money, whatever you're going to do with it. I just use the difference to cover my costs because I charge for that. I charge for shipping. So I'm giving eBay a commission basically off my shipping by a final value fee. And then it covers my cardboard, as I said, and my packing material, all my poly bags and the whole works too. So just FYI. Yeah, I could remember back in the day getting like 60 or 70 checks, in a couple days time when we first started. You could sell almost anything back in the day on eBay for crazy money. And I mean crazy money. We sold just all kinds of crazy stuff. There's a line in a movie, I think John Candy states he could sell a ketchup popsicle to an Eskimo. And, that's about the kind of thing I always figured you could do back in the day, because no one knew what rare was. If it was on eBay, you'd have two people bidding who had no clue on what the item was worth that they were bidding on. It would go up to some astounding, horrendously crazy price for something like a record now that sells for $10 was going for like $2,000 sometimes back in the day, just because no one knew where they could get those at before, the markets on online came around. When I first started selling, eBay was it, other than the small boards like Big Red Toy Box or Big Reel or any of those smaller companies that folded and, basically sold on eBay for a long time in their history. Yeah, I see innocent culprit. There's a lot of stuff. We do a lot of casting and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that you can make money off of casting still to this day. It just depends on what you're doing. Let's see here. Yeah, I never worried about the referrals. I don't remember anything about referrals, Jennifer. Maybe they did for everybody. I'm not sure. I never paid and played with that stuff. Nowadays, we cover any base we could. We got our fingers spread out all over the place. Mike Hunt. I don't know who your sister D is, so. Slide scanners, Chick Picker. I've got an I don't have one handy. There's some out there. Canon makes a CanoScan, I think it's actually called. They're older ones. For me, I use a light table if I'm doing slides. The light table works better if you're using a DSLR camera. So literally that's what I use for those. I've showed it in a couple videos. I've got a couple light tables here. I've got one actually that I'm probably going to put back together that used to be a doctor's office one too that seems to be the best. But a light table you can make. There's a lot of directions online. You're talking $10-15 to make a light table. And then you can use a DSLR camera. Some of the scanners will have it washed out on the side on the slides. I have not had much luck with any of the slide scanners. It's time consuming and such forth. I can just crank them out on a light table if I'm doing slides. And I've got maybe 10,000 slides right now that I haven't even touched yet. So they're sitting over here on the other side right now. So light table is what I use for slides. I use those for transparencies. I use those for glass plate negatives, for anything. And I've actually covered that in a video where you can, if you have negatives, you can digitally reverse them into a positive. So you can use the positive to post for your eBay main photo. A negative isn't going to sell it. I know people still do that, but if you post the positive, your item will sell twice as fast as just posting a negative, because people just aren't worried or paying enough attention to see what the negative actually is. At least that's my personal experience. Yeah, Walmart diversifies. Anybody who doesn't diversify is losing money here. Let's see here. Yeah, there's the 127 yard sale. I've been to those. I've just never had a ton of luck. It's a lot of time consuming, and I've got other sources that just call me nowadays. So great place to find it if you're new and don't have pickers. But once you got pickers, you're not going to want to mess with a lot of that stuff like that. My aggravation goes way down when I just go out and pick up some stuff, just personally. Again, we didn't start off this way. So, I used to have to do every sale and, gone 5, 6, 7 days a week picking just to keep enough coming in to get it going. Nowadays, it's totally different, though. I mean, we've advanced and spread out everywhere we can. So anyway. Thank you, Kathleen. I-76 Antique Mall. If that's the one you're dating, I think that's Jeffries you're talking about. Maybe it's not, but Jeffries. Do a Google search on Jeffries. It's a real big mall. I've always found stuff in there, always. And the last time I went in there, I got 2 hand-tinted prints from 1816. There were large ones too, and they had $2 a piece on these in Jeffries in a booth. And I ended up selling for like $175 a piece. That's just from one booth I found at Jeffries. So I dig through every stack. If there's a stack of just junk papers on any shelf, those are what I'm digging through. I'm digging through the bins of postcards. If I realize that they're pricing the postcards correctly, I move on. I don't waste my time looking through the postcards anymore. Or if they have a real picture postcard section, I'll just hit those, or I'll just hit the California cards and move on. That's literally what I do. But most of the antique malls, I can find some good stuff in here. I mean, across the board, I can find some good stuff in here. So, just keep that in mind. You have to have a broad range of items to look for. You have to diversify. Anybody who's telling you don't diversify and keeping it up with clothing is giving you bad information. You're going to be hurting by next year if your sales ever do increase. The market is not going good for clothing. And it's not what you're doing. It's not what eBay's doing. It's the whole market across the board. Sure, there might be some upticks in Poshmark or something like that. It's new. It's like flashy new keys in front of you or something like that. So just keep that in mind. It's all going to fade when clothing, because you've got the same stuff just going to some new source and a new way to sell it. It's still the same product that is getting harder to get, that's getting more expensive. So I have no problems with clothing. And if clothing was still a viable market in the area, I'd probably have at least half of my business at least still in clothing, just because it was available, but it's not available where I'm at. So anybody who's in this area where I'm at, it's not there. I can't find it, and I look really hard. I do a lot of research. We find better luck at upsale, resale boutiques than I do at thrift stores or garage sales. Around here, garage sales, everybody wants, a couple dollars for worn out, ripped up jeans, it seems like. So anyway. Old Mad magazines can sell too. Yeah, I've got probably, I don't know, a couple hundred of them over there. Depends. The prices are down. I usually have to bulk sell those Mad magazines. Robert Reagan. You can get them off of eBay, but for the most part, if you look at the people selling them, postcard wise, if you're looking to buy postcards off eBay, if they sell postcards individually, don't buy them off them. That's rule of thumb. Don't buy any postcards in bulk from anybody who sells postcards on eBay, because those are their leftovers. I don't care if they tell you that or if they say they're not. There's just no, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't buy it at all, because I'll bulk sell postcards myself in bins and lots of like 1,000. If somebody wants to buy 1,000 postcards from me, you're welcome to. I can tell you when I put it up. But, I've looked through those postcards. I'm not saying you're not going to be able to make some money off of it. Just by sheer quantity, you probably would. But it's not going to be worth your time to go through 1,000 postcards or whatever the lot you're buying off eBay from somebody who sells individual postcards. Why would they sell you something when they could sell the individual high dollar postcards themselves? So just keep that in mind. Your best bet for postcards is, if you want to get them in bulk, and cheaper than most, is go to a local live auction or go to a state sale that's doing an auction or something along that line and picking them up that way. I've got pickers who pick up bulk lots of them, so I get them from somebody else myself. So I don't worry as much about getting there. Have I bought postcards off eBay to make money? Yes, I have occasionally in the past. But those days are almost gone from what I see, because anybody who's selling postcards looks them up before they get rid of bulk. And you'll see people, these are the ones they list, and once they don't sell them, they'll pull them off. You can still make money for the folks who only list them once and then pull them off. Postcards are a long tail haul for the most part. So you may have to have a postcard up for months for it to sell at a reasonable price. So just keep that in mind. The more you have up, the more you're going to sell, obviously. So the more items you have, you don't have to rush to sell them once you've got a ton of items on. Like, we've got so many items up. It's like 43,000, like 600 listings, I think, is what the count is right this minute. So you're always going to sell something. There's always something that's going to be appealing to somebody. So our sales are, it's I shouldn't say leveled at a spot, but we're well over $700 a daily wise, with what we're selling on eBay. And that's not counting the other sites. And, we do affiliates and, the whole works like that too. So, it's a combined income. You don't rely on one source. You don't rely on eBay. You don't rely on Amazon. You rely on them all together. So if one has an issue, you still have other sites to sell on. Sell on as many sites as you feel comfortable with doing. Do them slowly, stagger off. Start with eBay. Get yourself on Amazon or Discogs or Poshmark or any of the other ones. Bonanza, I wouldn't mess with personally, just because I've heard horror stories. The sales are low. Most people don't even know what it is. Even Poshmark, some people don't even know what that is still today. So anyway. Let's see here. Any specific record labels to keep an eye out for? The ones you've never seen are the labels you really want. The common ones just don't sell for the most part. There's obviously some performers on some common labels like RCA or Epic or something that will still go into the hundreds or even thousands. But every record I sell over $1,000 are labels you've never heard of and artists you've never, ever, ever heard of. For those of you who know what pop psych is, I've mentioned this person here before, Ramona Collins. Just type in Ramona Collins on pop psych, and you'll see a label. That's a key one that I look for here. Wherever you live, you want to type in, if you're from Ohio, go to pop psych and type in Ohio and look at the labels you will see locally. Those are the ones you want to look for because those are the ones you're going to find. I know pretty much every rare Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan label that pops up around here, including some Canadian ones. So I know what to look for because I don't always look up every record if they're 50 cents or $1, as long as I'm getting good records in the lot. So sometimes I get records that aren't worth anything only because of a time factor. If they're $1 or less, sometimes I don't look them up. I'll take a shot at them because I can still bulk sell them and still almost always get a decent return on my investment, even bulk wise. It depends. Sometimes I'll buy them in huge, big bulk lots and it doesn't matter. I'll just blow out a couple hundred records for like 40 or 50 bucks. Even on eBay, we sell them in lots of 125. I've sold them in lots of 250. I've sold record lots of 500, and I've also sold record lots of 1,000 on eBay, and we've always sold them. So at least I've gotten my money back if it was just junk records. But I don't buy records if I know they're going to be junk. I look through enough to make sure I'm making a profit every time. That's what it goes back into. Kathleen Murphy, scratching is, if you've seen the records, they're not really scratched. If they were 78s you're talking about specifically, those records were not cleaned up. I don't buy a 78 record under V minus, usually V. If you don't know what that is, I actually have a grading video up as well, to record grading. Mid-grade or higher is what you want from records. 78 will play even broken. So it depends on the record. 45s and LPs, I won't buy below VG. They have to be very nice looking. Maybe the photos look bad, but if you see the records in person, you'll see what I mean. There's a big difference. They're not scratched. Once you've done enough records, I've looked at millions of records, and no exaggeration, millions of records. You can instantly tell once you've done enough records what's going to play and what's not going to play. So I don't sell any damaged records. And if I've talked about like Glenn Miller in the Mood, that's a $45 record any day of the week for us. So, I mean, that's just one specific, that's on a Bluebird label or on a standard RCA label. Sunset Serenade, that's another one. Moonlit Serenade, that's another one. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. They're very common records, the Glenn Miller especially, that sell very well. There's a lot of like, the Andrews Sisters. Anybody who's watched Abbott and Costello, back in the day, I know I'm probably older than some people, but Abbott and Costello used to have the Andrews Sisters on there, like Beat Me Daddy, 8 to the Bar. That's another good one. Andrews Sisters, I sell that one for 30 or 40 bucks most of the time. I sell them higher on Amazon. If there's a specific video you're talking about, you can put a comment under that video and I can take a look and see which ones you're talking about. But for the most part, most of the records are condition-wise V or higher, unless it's like a real rare record. The highest 78 I've sold is like around 1,000, and that was a Charlie Feathers. Now, if you don't know who that is, that's a rockabilly guy. His records sell phenomenally well. Flair Records, Chess Records by him. Charlie Feathers. If you ever seen Kill Bill when they're going up to the murder scene at the chapel, I think it's the scene's called The Bride or something like that. He's listening to Charlie Feathers, I believe, in that video, and that's one of the ones you always want to look out for. But anyway. I'm going through storage growing pains, so looking forward to that video. Yeah, I'll have a video up in this coming up week, maybe even, before the weekend here on storage. That was on my list, but I put a big highlight down here on my sheet. As I said, I always have a list of issues and things that I want to discuss, or question-wise, too, that I want to holler out. Storage-wise can be a problem for some people, but once you've played it all out, it's pretty easy. I mean, we measured everything out. I measured every inch of the space out to know how much I could get in here, as much as I could jam into this facility as I could even. So Let's see. Found all my bins at Goodwill throughout the years. Paid no more than $4. Yeah, Sublime, you can get them at Goodwill, but for me, I buy them in bulk. I sometimes buy 20 of these, at once or so, depending on what we got. Like these little ones here, I need a specific size because all these sizes work. I figured out how to use use these the best. Like clothing wise, these are the bomb. These things here, you can see through them. That's the key. I get only clear bins. I don't want anything I can't see through it. It makes and saves your time a lot because instantly where a piece of clothing is in the bag or in the bin or whatever it's at. So anyway, Robert, 99 cents free shipping. I have no idea how they're making that. Like on Amazon, on some of the items, you can make a few bucks by selling really dirt cheap items. It depends on the fee because you get so much credit back from Amazon. I don't know how anybody could live on that. I see people mailing postcards and selling them for 99 cents and only charging like 34 or 35 cents shipping for them or some crazy, whatever postage is now. I don't even know what postage cost is for regular mail these days. I just buy the never expire ones anyway. I don't know how they're making money. Maybe they're hoping. They usually list those kind of things 99 cents like a starting price, and they're always hoping that they go higher. 10 years ago, you could do a 99-cent sale and end up with a good price on most anything. But of course, the market's so well changed. There's so many other places you can buy these, and so many people know that these items aren't rare like they used to be. 20 years ago, people could put rare on something and it would go, as I said, some huge, crazy price on everything. It's just not that way anymore. As I said, the market changes. So those people who aren't changing, aren't adapting, are in trouble. So anybody doing a 99-cent sale, I have no idea. Maybe they're selling drugs on the side and this is some cover. I don't know. I just can't see anybody making up for it. The only other thing I could see if they're doing 99-cent sales is they have bad feedback and they're trying to outweigh the feedback as quick as possible. Now, I've talked a little bit about feedback, but if you're having bad feedback, you can run a whole bunch of cheap items, lose a few bucks on some items and get 50 or so items sold really quickly. And that will negate that feedback. So let's say you were at you only sold a couple dozen items. You don't have a lot of feedback. You take one negative feedback. It might sink you down to 98, 97. You sell 50 more items. It's going to bring you up in like 99.1 or at least enough where you're not going to be kicked off eBay. So that's your saving grace, is to sell a bunch of cheap items. It's the only way to negate it. Like when you sell a lot of items too, one negative might not even bring you down below 100% because it might only be like 0.2% of, a single percentage point. So we've had a negative not too long ago. It was removed though, but it only brought us down to still at 100%. We never actually went down. It still showed 100%. So, the only thing I can think of is that's what they're doing. They're trying to negate bad feedback maybe, or they just aren't smart enough to figure out why 99 cents isn't a good deal. So I don't know. I see that too, and I'm always puzzled. Let's see here. Yeah, wherever you can get the bins is fine. I mean, I just Walmart's easy and convenient for us. So, I understand, I've had some free ones. Actually, I don't have any anymore. We've phased them out because I hate not being able to see what's in them. The clear ones are what I buy for everything. It will save you time. I promise you. You'll know at least which side of the bin anything's on. If it's a book or something, sometimes you could even see them through the bin. So just, keep that in mind. It's just a time saver for us. And, as I said, they're like $6 or so for one of these big bins on sale. So, and then I'll buy a whole bunch all at once. So it's not a huge ordeal for us either. You got 36. Let's see, Scott Eddingfield, 36,000. I've got a couple 100,000. So I would just start pulling through some. Most of the common ones, you're going to have to do some research. I would just start pulling through. It depends on if they're LPs or 45s. LPs are down right now if they're originals because they've reproduced them. There's imports from Japan that are audiophile copies, which are very highly detailed copies of the record that sound better than a mint condition original. So I'm not into LPs. I don't buy many. I've got thousands of them still to sell, but I don't look out for LPs much anymore these days. So 45s and 78s. 78s are the biggest seller we have in records right now. So just keep that in mind. I would just start searching through. Once you've searched through a couple hundred of them, you're going to get a better idea and kind of know what to look for. Anything modern, I would just pretty much set aside right off the bat. Know your musical groups. Anything 80s and above, I usually don't mess with unless it's alternative 90s metal. Those always sell. AOR, that's what they call out of the 80s and 90s metal, or just literally alternative in general, like early Nirvana pressings. Sub Pop label, that's one label I always look for. I've gotten Bleach once on Sub Pop back in the day, and they're limited. Most of those were only minimal press. Sub Pop's a small a Seattle company, I believe. And most of those were worth a lot of money back when we first started selling. They're not as much anymore because they've rehashed those as well too. But anyway. Yeah, and I don't know if you say you find that to be true. Yeah, that is true because most of those people, I don't want to just disparage the ones who aren't, but the majority of the auctioneers are scrupulous. There's somebody to watch out for in my book, and I've run across many of them. I know the old timers when I sit there at some of these auctions, and my pickers as well, who've told me this guy went to jail, that guy went to jail. What they do is they have their own people stashed in the auction, and they'll have their employees bidding. There's one here in town that has employees who are working at the auction, bidding on the items in that auction. I don't go to it, so just because of that, one of my guys goes to it. I keep telling him to call, the county commissioner or the state commission board on that, because that is a violation of the law from everything I can see. But they get away with stuff like that, and they're not. They just want money. They'll rip off, estates all the time. Not all of them, so don't get me wrong. There's some good auctioneers out there, and there's some real good, honest, fair ones here locally too. But they're getting fewer and far between because they're trying to make a fortune on stuff that is more accessible to us some ways than it is to them. What a lot of these auction houses do nowadays is they're just taking leftover eBayers auction stuff. Like, they'll take bins of stuff they can't sell and throw them on the auction to somebody else who thinks that they're going to go buy them and resell them on eBay. So, and I see that. That's why I say you got to be very careful on what you're buying. You got to look it up. You got to know what you're doing. You got to spend some time on research. If you don't, you're going to go to one of these auctions and spend all your money and come back with nothing good. And set yourself a limit when you go to an auction, and don't go over that limit no matter what. Know what you got to get out of that, and know how much you can spend on it when you're going to an auction. I keep a pad. I keep a little pad in my pocket if I go, and I know what I want, and I know the auction number. I got my paddle ready and the whole works. So, turntable one. We sell Aretha Franklin too, so it depends on what they are. Some of her 45 sell better, especially like her first early ones that are scarce. Here we go again. Hang on. YouTube just posted a whole 3 more pages of comments that weren't there just a second ago. So let me catch back up to where I was. I've totally lost where I was at. Jaded Gypsy, if you want a turntable, buy you're just starting off, buy a used Ion for $30. Buy an Ion with a good needle. That's all you got to worry about. And go to a local record shop and get an Ion. An Ion is a digitally usable turntable with a USB plug-in, and it also has the RCA yellow and red jacks on them too. So I've got a couple of those. Plus I have a Techniques. I've got a Panasonic. I've got 3 turntables within this little area right now. And I used to have a turntable in every room. We even had one plugged into our surround sound just to listen to music sometimes too. But just get a cheapo Ion to start with until you get into more records and pay for it. Once you've paid for it, then look into buying a better one. Once you understand records a little better, don't spend a lot of money. Just keep yourself cheap and don't go hog wild into an area you're not sure on yet. It took us time. Don't be afraid if it takes you a little time to get to somewhere, because no one can just jump out in any category. I can give you bolos all day long and you can still make bad purchases if you're not careful. I can give you a record to buy, and in the wrong condition, you might not make a dime. So just keep that in mind. You with Annie with hang on, I don't want to miss somebody here. I'm trying to go down through it. Yeah, Scott, I would start looking those up. If you inherited those records, you might have some good ones if it's been in the family for a while. 50s, the older the better usually. And Annie on the Canadian, I'll just take the hit on those. If you send them without tracking and in regular envelope, it is against the law to send a postcard in a standard envelope without the import-export slip on it. I don't care what they tell you. They know it's the law. The reason people from Canada are going to give you a hard time, because if the postcard sells for over $20 and you report it at $20, they have to pay an import fee to the post office. And sometimes that could be $6 extra for a $20 postcard. So they know what the law is. Don't let them try and fool you into doing it. They know what the law is. They are trying to save the fees, the import fees. If you get caught doing it, I don't know what would happen to you. I would not want to get caught doing it. I would rather lose a few bucks in sales to a Canadian than anything else. Some of the Canadian folks that I sell to, they have a U.S. address as well too that they'll send them to if it's a bunch of stuff. So just keep that in mind. I don't mess with the ones that argue with me over putting it in a regular envelope. You can take the chance. Chances are nothing would happen to you if you put it in a regular envelope, but you have no tracking. You have no protection, but sending them directly from you to them at least saves them the money of doing the global shipping program, because it's like $18 or more for a postcard to Canada through eBay's global shipping program. So I get it as cheap as I can. I think it's like $10. Yeah, it's $10 to send to Canada right this minute. It used to be like 7 something when we first started, or even less than that, I want to say. But anyway. Yeah, the Kathleen Steele. Yeah, they've got auction sites everywhere. Trio World Live. Yeah, I'll put some on toys here soon too. Right now the wrestling figures are pretty hot. WWF's pretty hot right now, so they do sell well. The only problem is people are into wrestling and they've jacked the prices up to buy these. The average price on like a Junkyard Dog or a Hulkamania figure or something like that's like $5 plus to buy them. At least what I see them around here. Or if you're buying in bulk, sometimes you can get them down to a couple bucks a piece. But they're not huge movers for the most part. Some of the rare ones are. Andre the Giant one I sell all the time when I get him. So that's one I always look for. The Hulk Hogan, the big Hulk Hogan ones sell very well too, but I'll see about putting something together on figures. I sell a lot of vintage, even up into the 90s action figures sell very well too. So we'll have time for a few more questions. Looks like we're getting down to the end. I always say it's going to be an hour and always end up going more on that. Let me see here. Welcome, Kelly. Hit the like button if anybody enjoys this, please. No, I'm bad on calling that kind of stuff out, but anybody who wants to hit the like button for me would be great. Yeah, Annie, I've seen that one too. I'm just prone on shags and stuff. I don't know. It's just being in college and getting books for my kid. We buy as well too, so. How do I keep track of duplicate products? I'm not sure if you're meaning like you buy something and you just want to turn the listing in. Let me see. Lewis and Riley's Treasures. Like if you're talking about like a record or something, like if I've got 3 or 4 Glenn Miller in the Moods, I don't list another one until the first one sells. I don't want to flood the market. I've got, 3 or 4 Glenn Miller in the Moods right now. I sold one on Amazon like 2 days ago, so I listed another one and I re-upped another listing on it. So I don't list multiples of the same item until I sell one. I've got a pretty good memory, and I always look over everything we sell every single week at some point. So I can usually tell where we're at. Or if it's something that I don't want to have to go back and look for, and I have a bunch all at once, I'll just list one auction with, quantity 10 or something. Or if it's multiple items and you don't feel like listing, just list the second item on it. It doesn't matter if you got 2 of the same item up. If it's something that's going to sell and you don't have the time, or you've got so many items up, you don't have the ability to go back and track it down, just list the second item up. List 2 in the Moods if that was the case, if we're talking about a record, for example. Yeah, I don't mess with too many books, so I'm not into the big apps on the phone. I'm not literally what we sell I get from pickers mostly, and you see mostly paper. I don't mess with a lot of books anymore because around here there isn't much of a sourcing for these books. There's people that I don't know if they have inside deals or not at Goodwill, but most of the Goodwills price the books or auction them as well, especially if they're local college books. At least that's what I see. Let's see here. Good for 1 year money orders. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, usually we get the money orders with a month or 2. I don't bank locally. We have several local banks just because of payroll and things like that, but I don't usually have to worry about that. Most of the money comes from online sources for us anyway. Oh, I might go into an Alibaba video too, possibly, because we've dealt with them before. I've never had an issue. I know people hate the Chinese market and stuff, but if you're private branding, there's still a market for some private branding. So just FYI, if there's anybody interested in that. Rowdy Romantic. If you're talking about the photos on eBay, yeah, I think it was 2 they used to have let you do, and then after that, up till 12, it was 10 cents extra. But the first 2, that's what it was. The first 2 were free. Then anything over the first 2 were 10 cents each. Yeah, Anthony, you do run the risk of running into unpaid if that is the case. Um, it just depends. Let them know if that's the case, but for the most part, I've never had that happen on money orders or checks. Honestly, usually they send them right out, and I get them in like 4 or 5 days. We still take money orders, Jennifer. I don't know if you heard that, but we still do money orders and checks. So, I don't turn away money. There's a lot of people who still don't use PayPal. Yeah, Anthony, that is true too. You can't do over 13 ounces at the post office. That is only for online, up to 16 ounces, which we do use because it is cheaper. But I don't buy any postage at the post office at all. If I do want postage, you can get it online with an account yourself, and it'll be cheaper than the going to the post office as well too. We have a post office account. I've got a UPS account, I've got an Airborne account, and a FedEx account, and they're all tied in with eBay and Amazon as well too. Yeah, I remember Yahoo auctions. They weren't very good in my book, not compared to eBay anyway. Let me see if I can get another question in here because we're almost up to the mark here. How many items do I have? Reseller Rockefeller. Postcards and trade cards are probably 40% of what we sell. All the rest is books or hard goods in general. So between Victorian trade cards, we've got about 13,000, I think, right now, because we've sold a ton. And then postcards, I've got 2,000 or 3,000 up. All the rest is other items besides that. So there's 43,000 total items up. So like over half are other items, photos or toys or records. And then we've got items that we just have on other sites that I don't even put on eBay anymore. It depends on what it is. I've got a private site and things like that we sell things on too. It's by like invitation only. These are for like bulk or for people who buy for businesses that we do deal with too. But anyway. How am I able to buy from pickers? Because I pay almost nothing for paper. $1 postcard or less is what I pay for my pickers. $1 or less for a record is what I pay. Photos, the same thing. I buy bulk lots from them. Pickers are real good sources. They don't know paper. It depends on who you're dealing with. So, we make a good profit, and most of it comes from pickers. Probably 80% of everything I have comes from a picker, literally across the board. Welcome, Brad. Welcome, Scott Sims. We are just about out of here. Let me see if I can get another question in here. Sorry, here I'm trying to see if I can get another question here. What is the average number of original artwork I do per year? Maybe 80 or 90 pieces, somewhere in that range, probably. Probably more than that. I do a lot that I don't even sell. I mess around with, like the one I showed you before. I'll do it in many different ways. Let's see if I got a colored version of it. I mess around with stuff. I'll try stuff all different ways. I color and print, and then I'll do copies of it. I do a lot of stuff. So if I do one illustration, I may have done 20 drawings just for that. But I do artwork all the time. And again, a lot of it most people don't see, or I've done it for a specific person. I'm going to have a time lapse of somebody famous that I did for somebody. It's going to be a portrait. So you'll kind of see, if you haven't seen some of the artwork that I do, you'll see it live action. But I've got to cut it off here. We're right at the mark here. I've got an employee off in just a couple moments here. I try to get to the end here. I know, again, I've missed some questions. It looks like quite a few. So hold them on up here, or you can send me a message here on my About Me page on YouTube. I do have email. If you're not part of my Facebook group, go ahead and join the Auction Professor on Facebook. I answer as many as I can get to. So far, I'm able to keep up with all of them, but some days I get up to 100 different questions a day nowadays. So I get a lot of questions these days. So I'm not able to answer them all immediately, and sometimes it may take a day or two to get to some of the questions. So just FYI. But I'm gonna have to say goodnight to everybody. Glad to have you on here. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button for me. And I'm glad to have you on, and have a good day. Hopefully your sales are good as well too.